How you guys doing? Today I want to talk about the judges at the top United Nations Court have ordered Israel. This is the International Court of Justice, or World Court. They have ordered Israel to halt its offensive in the southern city of Gaza and to stop and withdraw from the enclave of Rafah. This was brought by originally South Africa. South Africa had brought it up to the International Court of Justice of the World Court, saying we need to try Netanyahu for genocide because he's going into Rafah and he's killing everybody. Never mind the fact that October 7th, 1,400 people, babies, people were butchered and killed and slaughtered when Hamas went through the border on motorcycles, cut through the wired fences on the Israeli border, and then just went in door to door and were just murdering people, killing people, butchering people. And never mind the fact that out of 250 hostages, a lot of them have been killed and murdered and raped and gone. Never mind that fact at all. Their thing they're saying is that, which is ironic, that this is the UN, that the United Nations Court is ordered, and the UN has had more resolutions against Israel than any other country in the world. Isn't that ironic? This is God's chosen people. We know the rapture is happening October 2nd to the 4th, based on the 80-year generation coming up. This Israel's 76. They're going to be 76 and a half by October 2nd. We also know, based on all this, that this pressure is building up against Israel, and the world itself is going to come to a conclusion that there needs to be a peace agreement, a 7-year peace agreement that the Bible predicts will happen. Jesus predicted this 2,000 years ago when he told this to John on the island of Patmos. John wrote the book of Revelation, and he talks about a 7-year peace agreement being signed. Ezekiel mentions the third temple being built. Isaiah talks about it also. So this is a buildup right now where the International Court of Justice is saying, wait a minute here, enough Israel, pull out and stop. The crazy thing is when they say that, then all of a sudden, as of just today, Hamas was sending over missiles and rockets again. See, the big problem with Israel is this. Israel's the size of New Jersey. There's not that very, a few million people there. It's not very big. So the problem is that the people in the northern Israel, which is near southern Lebanon, have had to move to the south. So say you live in a city of 100,000 people. Now you have to go several hours south, pick up your stuff, and go live in a tent. Your kids are no longer in school. They're living in tents. Your whole family's moved out of your home, and you're now several hours south living in a tent, hoping to somehow, some way, go back home. On top of the fact that you have hostages that have been, family members you've loved, been taken hostage, and who knows, they've been buried underground since October 7th. And who knows if they're ever coming out. Half of them are dead. Hamas won't verify it, and they won't release them. So you can see the pressure on Netanyahu right now is very intense. This is the reason why Netanyahu is doing what he did. I don't know if you know, but in the past, Netanyahu was like a crying, whiny baby all the time. He was like a crybaby. He whined to the UN on and on. And I used to just go irritated hearing about it. Constantly whining to the UN, hey, this is what's going on with, us, and, the Arabs are firing missiles over Hezbollah and Hamas, and nobody's doing anything about it. And Iran is building its nuclear enrichment program, and it's going to have nuclear weapons, which it essentially does now, thanks to Obama, who fueled billions of dollars to Iran, thanks to American taxpayer dollars he stole from us. Obama the Antichrist, by the way. If you're not sure if he's the Antichrist, go ahead and just ask the Lord, and he'll tell you. And if Pope Francis is not the false prophet, and you're not sure about that, then go ahead and ask the Lord, because that's what he is, false prophet. So what's going on with Netanyahu is the Bible predicted that there would be a government that was no longer established. And I don't know if you know, but they're sort of sharing terms. Benny Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu, are sharing terms here. And Benny Gantz has now put so much pressure, because the pressure from the people right now is on Netanyahu to do more. They're saying, look, our loved ones are held hostage. Some have died. Enough is enough. Remove Hamas for good in Rafah, because Rafah is the last city in the Gaza area they've got it surrounded now. And there's like 3 or 4 battalions of Hamas. But I don't know if you know about history. When we went into Afghanistan, what happened was Russia went into Afghanistan and they were fighting them. But these people were in tents and built, and they were hiding in caves in the ground. And we spent trillions of dollars from American money to try and go after every cave and every single person hiding somewhere in the mountains somewhere. And it was just that's when they used to say American flags bleed red, meaning you just couldn't win that kind of war. Russia did it for 20 years. We moved in for like 10 years, and we couldn't win the war either. Well, Hamas is the same thing in Gaza. They've got weapons that are built underground. They've got 700 plus tunnels that go from there all the way to Lebanon. And thanks to Netanyahu, who didn't do anything for the last 20 years, this is why for the last 13 years, Netanyahu's done nothing. So because of that, they've been able to put weapons on the border of Israel, basically the border of Hamas and Israel, for years. So now there's 180,000 rockets that are built up. At one point, they weren't there. But in Israel, instead of being proactive, they decided he was crying like a crybaby to the UN all the time. And I'm like, you should have been stepping up and taking out those weapons along the border. They started slowly building them. That's why they're finding full-on tanks buried in the sand with only the nozzle of the tank just about 2 inches out of the ground, and they're firing from there. So you can't even see the tank. It's buried underground. So the issue now is you've got all these weapons on the border. So it's a big threat to Israel. Israel was hoping they wouldn't fire all those missiles. We know eventually they will, because the Bible says this is the Psalm 83 war. And the Psalm 83 war predicts that those missiles will go off. They'll hit the Iron Dome, which when the Iron Dome is destroyed, that's where they're going to build the third temple. They're going to fire them off. Also, most of Israel will be destroyed. Just very little of Israel will be left. But the walls will be down. So if you read Psalm 83 war, after that war occurs, the walls are down. So what's the importance of having the walls down for the Psalm 83 war? Extremely important, because if the walls are down, then as a result of that, they're going to have to, they've got them on their border. They've got Hamas on their border. They've got Hezbollah on their border. They've got the Houthis on their border. They've got the Syrian militia on their border. So how can they defend against that? That's when Obama, the Antichrist, steps in and says, peace, peace, peace. Let's do a 7-year peace agreement. The world is decrying peace right now. Norway, Spain, Germany, all of them are asking across Europe and the world, Australia. Australia's got Israel's back right now, but they're all saying, we just need a 7-year peace agreement. The world always freaks out when this happens because they're so worried that World War III is going to take place, which it is going to take place, by the way. The Bible predicts it. Russia's in dealing with Ukraine right now, but Poland is a big factor because Poland has got weapons built on the border of Russia, and we're sending, just like we're supplying Ukraine with weapons to fight Russia, which depleted all of Russia's assets. We've also seized all their assets and depleted their dollar and everything. So they've been in a military alliance with Turkey and Iran, which the Bible predicted 2,000 years ago would happen. They're in that military alliance. Iran is now supplying the money that we gave Iran, Obama that gave Iran. He supplied them money, of course. Because under the Trump administration, Trump had heavy sanctions on Iran. They were bankrupt. He even told every country out there in Europe, if you buy oil from Iran, we'll bankrupt you. We'll single-handedly put sanctions on your country. So nobody did that. When Biden came along, he removed all the sanctions because Obama's really running America right now. Not Biden. He's too delirious. Obama's running it, the Antichrist, right? He's ready to step onto the scene and declare himself as God. First, he's going to do the peace agreement. So right now, he happens to be the international individual that's working for Biden to handle international affairs. Ironic, huh? The Antichrist doing all that, and that kind of ironic? Oh my gosh. But, so that's kind of where we're at right now. And the world is saying enough is enough. Either, they're trying to tell Netanyahu that he's a war criminal, that he's committing genocide, that he won't stop the war. But the interesting thing is nobody really tells Hamas to stop it. No one punished Hamas for the 1,400 individuals they slaughtered on October 7th, the Israeli individuals. And, of course, the 120 hostages are still underground somewhere. No one seems to be concerned about that but Israel. The big problem is that's an issue. On top of that, with Israel and the hostages and then all that, but the people have forgotten about the 350 missiles that Iran just sent. They just sent that. So the big deal with Israel right now is Benny Gantz has said his argument, and this is it's almost like two presidents are running, two prime ministers are running. Benny Gantz does half a term, Benjamin Netanyahu does the other half of the term. So Benny Gantz's argument is, see, what happens is they're not going to have the elections until 2026. But Benny Gantz has put pressure now to say, you know what, let's have the elections in September. Once again, rapture happens on October 2nd to the 4th, which is the Feast of Trumpets, which is the day. I have a lot of videos on. Please subscribe if you like my channel. I have a lot of videos on details about the rapture that's going to happen October 2nd to the 4th, the 80-year generation that does not expire on that date. That's also a solar eclipse. That's when the sun turns dark and the moon turns to blood, according to the Revelation 6 seal. America gets wiped out. nuclear blast occur because Israel nukes Iran's reactor. On top of that, the Bible says Damascus will be a heap of ruins in the morning. Well, guess what's been happening with Damascus? Israel's been bombing it like crazy because the Damascus airport, Iran's been using to transfer weapons through the Damascus airport. So you can see that what's going on with that. So that's the reason why that will be a heap of ruins in the morning. But because of the 350 missiles, everybody forgot about that. Iran was using that to test to see how far they can go. They've been doing uranium enrichment for many, many years, last 13 years since, Obama's given them billions of dollars support. They built the entire nuclear reactor from Obama's billions of dollars he stole from America as president. And he was just the worst president in history. He signed more executive orders than any other president, 900 to be exact. And he had the lowest GDP and created the highest amount of debt, more than all presidents combined. And he wrote in his book that he hates America, and then he's a Muslim, he's a Christian. When they asked him a question one time, what is your religion? He said he was a Christian. Who gets their religions confused, right? We know he's a Muslim. He bowed to the Saudi king. His wife, if she's even a woman or a man, I'm not sure who she is. But you can see what was going on there. He bowed to the Saudi king. Nobody bows to the Saudi king unless you're a Muslim. So the reason why the world freaks out is because there's billions of Arabs and they're all Muslims. And in the Quran, there's 157 references to killing Christians and Jews. The Quran was written hundreds of years after the Bible, right? Jesus talks about forgiveness. Jesus talks about the tribulation and the Antichrist being someone who will behead people. Well, what religion beheads people? Muslims. And their idea is to kill Christians and Jews and appease Allah. And Muhammad, who, slept with a 9-year-old girl and was a murderer and encouraged everybody to kill as many Christians and Jews as you can. There's 157 references to doing that in the Quran. So that's their goal. In fact, one guy recently was in his 20s and he called his parents, and Israel had recorded this. And he told his parents, and they were in tears, and they were so happy. He said he had strangled and killed and murdered at his bare hands 9 Israelis. And his parents were crying. They were so happy and said, "Oh, God bless you, son, for doing such good work." I mean, this is not exaggeration. So that's kind of what's going on with the war right now, what's going on with the Israeli war right now. And you have the International Court of Justice, of the World Court, that's demanding that they put an end and a cease to this war right now, that they put a cease to the end of the war. However, Netanyahu and the military generals are saying that they want nothing to do with that, and they're saying that they're going to continue to finish off. Why is Netanyahu so determined to finish this war off? Well, because he wants to stay in the presidency. He's going to lose his presidency if he can't do that. He made a promise, and I remember when the first day of this war on October 7th, last year, he made a promise, 2023, he made a promise that he would defend Israel and take care of Hamas. He said he would remove Hamas, and he would even remove Hezbollah, and then he'd eventually cut the head of the snake off, which is Iran. He made a promise, and I thought, oh, there it is. He made a promise on TV, and all the Israelis saw it, and they've held him to it since. It's like, oh, you made that promise. You got to keep your promise, because he wants to stay in office. He wants to keep running forever. But Benny Gantz, the election would be in 2026, but Benny Gantz is like, you know what, let's not do this divided government. Why don't we go ahead and have elections in September, which is right before the October 2nd through 4th rapture, which I believe will happen on the 2nd. So they're going to have those elections on that day, and that's going to be really important. And it'll be important to see what happens on that. But we know that either Netanyahu is going to stay in office or Benny Gantz. Benny Gantz's attitude is that if you have any issues, just attack. He said when he had problems with Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, he went and attacked directly on Iran soil. Israel did that recently when they fended off the 350 missiles. They attacked on Iranian soil, and they took out all the radar protection that protects their nuclear reactor, Iran's reactor, because they are planning on hitting the nuclear reactor. They planned it with Trump. They did it this time. They were going to strike the nuclear reactor. They decided not to because Biden begged them not to. They were over there in the middle of the night. Iran didn't even know there was planes, and they sent F-35 fighters over, refueled in the middle of the night, and took out the radar protectors that protects the nuclear reactor of Iran. If they hit that reactor, there'll be radiation around the world. People will go underground immediately. It'll be basically World War III because the Arabs will go crazy because of it. And the radiation will cause people to go underground because the Bible says that people are scorched by the sun. The ozone layer will be burned off as a result of it from that radiation. Because the winds of the radiation will take it around the world. The Bible also says the weapons will be burned for 7 years. Well, that big reactor, they've got bunker buster bombs that will go deep into the earth to hit that reactor. that would set off radiation for 7 years, and weapons would burn for 7 years. That's exactly fulfilling the prophecy in the Bible. So that's kind of what's going on right now. So this is why there's so much pressure on Netanyahu to go ahead and finish the job, finish the promise that he made on October 7th, get the hostages back, which I think will be impossible. I think they're already been taken over to Lebanon. That's what I feel. They've been taken to Lebanon, and to finish the job. So he's got a lot of pressure on him, and Benny Gantz basically wants him out and wants to take over. And the argument between Benny Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu, the two presidents, prime ministers right now of Israel, the main argument is that Benny Gantz feels like that when Gaza is fully completed and taken over by Israel, which I think will basically be impossible to do, there'll be Hamas hidden underground and so forth. The promise is that Benny Gantz wants to give it to the UN to take over. Can you imagine? The UN recently sent food over, and guess what? Israel had footage of them transferring the food to a Hamas trucks, if you can imagine that.